Hey there, I'm Verity Songon and this is the Confident CEO podcast, the show that takes you behind the scenes of starting and running your small or not so small business. We will cut through the misinformation and bad advice about starting and running a business and give you actionable tips and advice that you can implement to grow, scale and achieve your business goals. Let's dive in. Hello there everybody and welcome back to the Confident CEO podcast. As ever, it is lovely to have you here. Now the exciting thing about this episode is not only are we doing another The Apprentice review for the Apprentice UK, but we are also filming this live. So thank you very much to everybody who is joining us live on Instagram as well. You're almost getting a little bit of a little sneak into this episode because it is obviously being live earlier than the recording, but the recording will be going up on Sunday, which is a little bit of an odd day for the recording to go up, but it's what's working in the schedule with these additional episodes. But I've got my notebook here, we're all ready to go. I loved this episode so much with the immersive experience I was writing. I think I've done like 2 pages worth of notes, which is just so much fun, I think. But before I dive into talking about the Apprentice UK Week 8 episode, I just wanted to very quickly touch on just one of the new services that I have got released. I've been speaking to a lot of people recently about this and I am super excited. I am overwhelmed by the support and the enthusiasm for the service, which has now launched, and I am open to accepting clients for my podcast monthly management services, which, as I said, I'm just so super excited. So if you are somebody, if you're a CEO, you're a podcast owner, and you're thinking, do you know what, I don't have the time to dedicate to all of the things that come with managing a podcast. I can do the recording, but all the everything like the social media graphics, the editing, putting it all together, coming up with a plan for putting the podcast out there, etc. If you're just feeling really overwhelmed from a time point of view, or if you're thinking, actually, I don't need to be doing this, I need to be outsourcing this, then I would love to have that conversation with you. So I will drop the link to booking a discovery call down in the show notes. So do check that out. As you know, I love everything to do with podcasting, and having managed and produced my own show for nearly a year now, I am really excited to be able to extend this service to other people and to help other CEOs and entrepreneurs out there to manage their podcasts, basically so you can have more time doing whatever it is that you do best, and you can have more time income generating for your business, or if you don't want to do that, time back for something else that you want to do, maybe spend more time on your hobby with the family, whatever it is, I want to give that time back to you. So as I said, if that is calling out to you, if you're thinking 2023, I need to be outsourcing my podcast management, then do book a discovery call with me. As I said, link in the show notes, and I would love to chat through with you how we can potentially work together and how I can help you to manage your podcast. But jumping back to today's episode, we are talking about the Apprentice UK, the Week 8 Immersive Experience episode. I know I keep calling it the Apprentice UK. I know it's just called the Apprentice, but I do have a large listenership for this podcast, which I'm very grateful for outside of the UK. So I just want to specify that it is the UK version of The Apprentice, just in case people are thinking, I've got no idea what you're chatting about, Verity. That didn't happen on this week's episode. If there's another Apprentice airing elsewhere in the UK. So what I wanted to pick up on, this first point, is why do they never have normal phones in The Apprentice? I love it. Is it like a lion head where like the receiver comes out of the lion head or something? They always have these really cool phones once they get into the house, which I just think is really, I don't know, I love that. So that was my first thought. So the PMs for this task this week were Mark and Avi. Who loves Avi? I've said it before in these episodes reviewing The Apprentice. I just think Avi is brilliant. And do you know what? I'm going to jump straight to the end where he was talking in the boardroom and he gives that definition of what profit is. And he was like, yeah, because to me, this is what profit is. And Karen's just like, no, Avi, that is literally the definition of what revenue and profit and all the rest of it is. But I think he's so funny how he he just jumps in with all of these definitions all of the time. Like when they were trying to sell tickets, he and Michelle were trying to sell tickets, and he was giving a definition to the bloke as to what a sensory experience was, and started explaining what all the senses were. I think he's brilliant. I think Avi almost needs, at the end of this, he needs like his own BBC Three TV show, I feel. His own BBC Three business TV show. I just think Avi's brilliant. He's great watching. But anyway, pulling back from that, let's go back to the beginning of the episode. As I said, the PMs for this task were Mark and Avi. And Avi mentioned something right near the beginning when they were talking about the pricing strategy, which I thought was really interesting. And he mentioned about psychological pricing and not having a round number when selling tickets. So selling it for like £95, for example, as opposed to £100. I can't remember exactly what their pricing was. But I did think that was really interesting, because having watched goodness knows how many episodes and series of The Apprentice now, I'm not familiar with very many people talking about psychological pricing. So I think that was a really, really interesting, topic or take on pricing to dive into. And actually, maybe that's something that we talk about on the podcast at some point. It's something that I was talking with my business coach about recently, but maybe that's something we need to do an episode on, is the psychology of pricing your services. So yeah, I quite like that. And then Mark selling his tickets. Oh my gosh, Mark with his pricing. So we've got Avi on one hand going with the psychology tricks, quote unquote, but the psychology hacks almost for pricing. And then you've got Mark going in and selling his tickets and saying, oh yeah, I know that his exact words were, that stings. And he goes, yeah, I know, basically he's saying, this is the price. I know that it's very expensive, but what would you prefer to pay for this? I'm sorry, what? Just no. You are going in with a price. If that price is not for that individual, move on. It's kind of like my services for podcast management, podcast launches, and my power hours and what have you. I know that my pricing is not for everybody, but once I know that that person is not my target client, then we're not my qualified client, then I'm moving on. I'm not changing my prices to suit that individual, because there are other people out there who will pay my prices. It's not about lowering your prices and changing your pricing structure to meet everybody's needs, because otherwise people are just going to be like, well, I've only got 10 quid, so that's all I'm going to spend. So yeah, that really baffled me. I was like, no, Mark, you've got a pricing structure, just stick to it. But then on that note, he said something really interesting in The Apprentice You're Fired with Tom Allen afterwards, where he was saying that, when you're in that bubble of initially planning out the product and the the services and the prices and what have you, he said you are literally in a bubble and you're all egging each other on and it's going great. And he said it's not until you actually get out of that conversation and then you're in the taxi and reality starts to set in and you start thinking, oh, actually, can I just second guess my decisions? Which I guess is, it's a TV show at the end of the day, so I guess that's kind of the environment of the TV show. They're seeing how they make these decisions under a lot of pressure and how they deal with pressure, because obviously for the majority of us in business, creating an offer, we're not going to spend only, an hour, 2 hours, I don't know exactly how long they have, but not very long, to say this is the entire product, this is how much I'm going to, charge for it, and that's, jobs are good and let's go sell the tickets. We normally have the privilege of much longer to plan these things. So that I thought was an interesting reflection on his part. However, I was literally screaming at the TV. I was just like, Mark, you've set this price. Just sell it. Don't go in and be like, oh yeah, I know that stings. When was the last time you went into anywhere that sells anything expensive? When do you think somebody last went in to a Dior shop or Gucci and got told the price and the shop assistant turned around and said, oh yeah, no, that's a bit expensive, but what would you rather pay for it instead? Just no. Anyway, let's move on. Actually, no, let's keep on that point, because, they were so focused on the low costs, and it just kind of got me thinking, like, did you not learn anything from Dubai? The whole point, all the conversations around Dubai were, yes, you might be in a profit task. I can't talk. Yes, you might be in a profit task. Yes, you might have, you've got to create the high profit margins and what have you. You want to keep your costs as low as possible. However, if you're selling high ticket items, you need to have a high ticket experience to go with that. And do you know what? I quite agreed with Megan when she was saying that in the boardroom. You can't, in my opinion, I agree with her, you can't go and sell like a £180 ticket and then get £5 worth of food. It just doesn't really correlate. So I did actually agree with Megan when she was fighting, saying that not fighting, arguing, but, making her point in the boardroom there. And I think it strongly comes back to the point, just talking about Mark saying, oh, that stings and what would you pay? It comes back to that classic adage of selling benefits and not the features. So I think he was very much going in with saying, well, it's only one day and you only get one meal. Oh, 180 quid sounds an awful lot. But actually it's selling the benefits. Well, you're going to have this amazing day out. You've got this food prepared and it's really authentic. I don't know. I'm thinking off the top of my head, but you get my point. It's about selling the benefits as opposed to the features of that 180 quid. But I don't know why I'm saying 180 quid, because I don't think they actually sold any tickets for 180 quid. I think didn't they go down to like 50, 60 pounds or something, which is a huge jump down, but never mind. But it does also come onto the point about ideal and qualified clients. Not all of your clients are going to be qualified for the service. And what I mean by qualified is actually hitting all the criteria to come into your service. So, for example, approaching people and saying, oh, what would you pay? Oh, well, I'd only pay 10 quid. They're not a qualified client to come into that service, because you want people who are prepared to spend £180 on the experience there. So it's thinking about, like I said, who is not just ideal, but who is qualified, who's meeting the criteria to come into your service or your program there. And like I said, I still can't believe, when I'm talking about a lot about Mark's team here, I do realise, but, when they went round to the offices and they were basically like recreating all of the packages. No, you've got your package. If those potential service users, those clients don't want that package, move on. Fine, you might want to make some tiny tweaks, but tweaks is very different to completely rebuilding the entire package around people going, oh, but I want this and I'll take this out and all the rest of it. That was just awful as far as I was concerned. But anyway, let's move through to the actual immersive experiences. Again, lovely Mark's team. They just didn't know what they were going in for, did they? The clients, did they? Those poor visitors had no idea. I think they went there expecting a history tour and they just got shouted at. And oh my God, Simba insulting that woman's shoes. How does he know that they weren't bloody expensive? Excuse my language, but how does he know they weren't bloody expensive shoes? I understand what Megan and Simba were trying to do. But if I'm being quite honest with you, the bits that they showed on telly, and like I said, I say this in all the episodes, it's obviously just a cut down version. It's only an hour's worth of TV that we can dive into, but it did start at some points to feel slightly Lord of the Flies. But never mind. If we look at the other team, so Avi's team, when they were Avi's team, sorry, I keep saying Avi, his name's Avi, but in Avi's team, when they go, the Victorian village, which I need to find out where the Victorian village is, because I just thought it looked so quintessential. That is totally my jam. I love that I love history, so I need to find out where they were. But if anyone knows, let me know, please. But them getting the gluten-free and vegan food mixed up, oh my gosh, this was literally the only thing I can really remember from Avi's team, because it just, oh my God, it concerned me so much. Now, I follow a gluten-free diet. For anybody who doesn't know, I've not got celiac disease, but I do need to follow a gluten-free diet for health reasons. But regardless, getting the vegan and the gluten-free food mixed up, I mean, how do they know that person with the gluten-free food, it could be out of choice that they're gluten-free, or it could be for health reasons. I mean, if I eat wheat starch, which I realise isn't gluten, but I'm not going to go into the whole thing now, I get incredibly ill. So yeah, if that was me, they were so uncertain as to what was the gluten-free dish and what was the vegan. I probably wouldn't, regardless of what they then gave me afterwards and were trying to reassure me, I don't think I would have eaten it at all. I probably would have picked it, maybe a bit of salad on the side. And I definitely would have asked for a refund, because if I've gone in saying I need to eat this certain diet actually you don't even need to give a reason, just I need this particular food, and they didn't give you that straight up, and there wasn't the 100% certainty that you needed this and, you got this, yeah, I would have asked for a refund at that point. I would have been like, no, I'm just not eating it. Just give me the salad, and then probably, got it with croutons or something. But, my point is I would not have done that. So anyway, I've already spoken about how I agreed with Megan. That was my final point that I've got jotted down, that if you're paying, high pricing, then you expect amazing food. So yeah, I think it's a fine line, isn't it, between paying, charging a lot, and then paying lower for your products or whatever, so that people can, so that you as a team can make more profit. I completely get that, but at the same time, sometimes I think you need to sacrifice the profit a little bit, particularly if you're wanting to get those premium experiences. I have to say, I was really, really surprised when nobody got any refunds. Like, I don't know why, I just expected there to be refunds requested and issued. But regardless, on to the final point. Mark, do I think he deserved to leave? Unfortunately, yes. And I actually I liked Mark. I don't think I've talked about him on any of these review episodes yet, but I liked Mark. I thought he was a nice contender, but then maybe using the word nice, maybe that kind of summarises it. But I just think he completely lost the plot with this particular task. There was no pricing strategy in place. Well, there was, but it wasn't stuck to. He, trying to get people, it's a bit high, do you want to just change it? There was no control over there. And I think, unfortunately, I do agree with everybody. Even on the You're Fired show, literally everybody was saying, he needed to be fired. So very sorry, Mark, but I completely agree with that. So on that note, that is my review, what I thought about week 8 of the Apprentice UK, the Immersive experience. I would love to know what you also thought of this episode. So do feel free to drop me a DM on Instagram. Let me know your thoughts as well. And also just continuing to say thank you for tuning in to all of the episodes of the Confident CEO podcast, but particularly these Apprentice episodes, because I was not sure how they were going to be received, and they're doing ridiculously well for downloads. Like, these review episodes are really, really popular. So I can only thank you for that, and thank you for supporting those, these additional episodes. I have had quite a few of you contact me as well, asking to have Dragon's Den ones as well. I'm not too sure where I'd find the time to add those in, but it's very flattering that, the request is there. But yes, so thank you so much to everyone who is tuning in for these additional episodes. As I said, it is Sunday and we have yet again hit the top 200. We are still in the top 100 entrepreneurship podcasts on Apple Podcasts in the UK. So just again, thank you so much to everybody who continues to listen and support the podcast. Massively appreciated. And I love having you guys here, and thank you once again for everybody's time to come and hang out with us on the podcast. I will see you soon. Well, I'll see you next episode. Have a great rest of your weekend. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of the Confident CEO podcast. Before you go, I would absolutely be overjoyed if you could take just 2 minutes to leave me a review in Apple Podcasts. Reviews are a great way to tell Apple Podcasts how much you enjoyed the show, and it helps the algorithm to push out the podcast to more people, thereby helping us to help empower even more badass businesswomen to grow their inner CEO and grow to be the confident CEO of their business that they can be. I love to shout you out in your reviews as well, so you never know, you might be hearing your name on the podcast in the next episode. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.